This is the worst AA meeting I've been to. A little fact about me, I'm actually half Mexican. Off my dad's side, he's full. Obviously my mom, she's white. And when I tell people that, they're like, really? And I'm like, no. I have both parents, but I only inherit 100% DNA from just one. Little story about the day I was born. My grandma was at the hospital. When my grandma first saw me, my dad's mom, my dad said, "Hey mom, look at this. They come in this color." And she's like, "Really?" And my dad had to briefly explain how hospitals do not work like car dealerships. They don't come in this year, make, model, and color. He had to briefly explain that. Yeah. No, but she said, my grandma said to my dad, "You know what? Every time you go, but one thing that hospital and car dealerships have in common, they both cost you an arm and a leg. You spend a whole bunch of money there."
That's right.
I like to give a shout out to my other grandma. We were talking about saving money one day, and my grandma, she still uses a landline, even though she has a cell phone, and she still gets the TV guide booklets instead of using the little button on her TV remote. And I was like, "Grandma, you're just blowing money on those two things." And she's like, "Oh, honey, you don't have to worry about me." And I'm like, "I'm not worried about you. I'm just worried about my inheritance." Oh, man. For those of you out here in the audience who grew up in the 70s and 80s before the cell phone era, how'd you settle arguments with your dumb friends? Like the ones that did not know the simplest fact, like who was the first president of the United States? One guy would be like, "Oh, JFK." And I asked that question to my dad, and he said, "Well, if something ever happened like that, we'd just beat the one dumb friend up." And yeah, I love my old man. He also brags about a lot back in his day. You know what? And he told me, "You know what? Back in my day, we didn't have Pokemon cards. We had these things that were called Playboy magazines. Those were the original Pokemon trading cards back in the day. Hey, I'll trade you the latest fall edition for the new spring edition." Yeah, I like living out here in Lawrence, Kansas, because you see stuff that you don't commonly see anywhere else, and the stuff that you do see, you kind of regret seeing. Like this one time, I'm at this gas station. And I walk in, and the cashier guy, there was only one person working there, is that one cashier guy. And I'm walking down, I'm getting ready to turn down this aisle, and the cashier guy says, no, don't go down there. And I'm like, "Why?" So I peek and I turn, and there's a giant turd on the floor. A giant turd. And the cashier guy had to briefly explain that he's the only one working there that day, and early in the morning, he had to go back and take care of something, and there was this old man who lost his mind for some odd reason, had to go to the bathroom, and he couldn't find his way, and so he just dropped his pants and just went directly on the floor. And I was like, yeah, I am sure and proud of my home state. Speaking of old people, you know, I respect my senior citizens, and my grandpa always told me, "You know what? My generation, we're smarter than your generation, so show us a little respect." And I was like, okay. So every time I'm out driving, you always come across that one old person who's driving under the speed limit, and sometimes driving like 15 miles an hour under the speed limit. So I would usually try to pass them, and I'll try to roll down my window. And I say, "Hey, I don't know how they drove back in 1960 shit, but here we follow the speed limit." All right, thank you.
Yeah, big guy, here we go, big guy, everybody.